The Senate was in for a rare Sunday session to hold a test vote on a $95 billion foreign aid bill to Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. It passed easily 67 to 27, which means it is expected to receive final approval from the Senate in the coming days. Across the Capitol, the House is expected to start the week with a second attempt to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Florida Republican Congressman Byron Donalds predicts the GOP will be successful this time.
We're going to put that on the floor. It's going to pass. And look, the Senate is going to have to take this up and they're going to have to deal with it. They just can't ignore it. They're going to have to decide one way or the other. Should Alejandro Mayorkas actually keep his job?
Fallout continues from the Robert Hur special counsel report looking into President Biden's mishandling of classified documents. The report described President Biden as an elderly man with a poor memory, potentially so damaging politically that it forced a swift response from the president.
There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died. How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, it wasn't any of their damn business.
President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke Sunday for the first time since Mr. Biden made this comment.
I'm of the view, as you know, that the conduct of the response in the Gaza Strip has been over the top.
Before their phone call, Netanyahu offered this reaction on Fox News Sunday.
So what would America's response be? I'd say that it would be at least as strong as Israel's, and many Americans tell me we would have flattened them. We would have turned them into dust.
Many Republicans are eager to express their unwavering support for Israel.
In my opinion, President Biden has done okay handling the Hamas attack on Israel since October.
Louisiana Republican Congressman Clay Higgins is a U.S. Army veteran.
However, if you do an okay job managing an international crisis, there's a tremendous room for failure. And that's the territory he's in right now. He's trying to play both sides of his political realities, and that's not the way to approach this thing. I mean, Israel is our ally. They're the only democracy in the Middle East. They were attacked brutally and viciously by terrorist forces, and they have the right to respond fully and wholly and thoroughly based upon their intelligence on the ground and their needs as a sovereign nation. And we should just stand by them essentially and say, yes, sir, we are with Israel. Instead, President Biden has chosen this path of, on the one hand, messaging support for Israel, and on the other hand, speaking to his liberal base, who have amazingly come out in support of Hamas. It's somewhat, popular now amongst liberal youth, even across America, to rally behind Hamas. And I didn't think I would see that in America, but it has happened. So President Biden has done a very poor job by kneeling to those voices that are coming from his own factions of his own party, as opposed to just standing strong with Israel, period.
Another massive story in recent days, the release of Special Counsel Hur's report on President Biden's mishandling of classified documents. Some Republicans calling for the 25th Amendment to be invoked due to the descriptions of the president's poor memory. What do you make of this report?
Well, I didn't see this coming. I have to tell you, I knew that there would be a report because it's required, when there's a special investigation of this nature. And I knew that there would be no charges because there's no way the DOJ is going to charge a sitting president. That's contrary to anything we've ever seen in history. That doesn't mean he couldn't be criminally liable or hadn't committed criminal acts, but I was not surprised that they that DOJ came forth and said there will be no charges. However, I was surprised at the candor of the language in the report that was released, not by the content. The content was what, you and I and most Americans have come to the conclusion, which is that our inaugurated President Biden is not in full possession of his faculties. He's, described as, I believe, sympathetic, nice elderly man with a poor memory. That's probably pretty accurate. If you set aside the, wanton destruction of our nation part, I guess we could see him as be sympathetic with him as an elderly man with a poor memory. So it is concerning to us as the citizenry. Americans that are watching this, and we have a patriotic love for our country, and that transcends political affiliation or any sort of ideological perspective. Man, we need our president to be squared away, whether or not we believe he's the inaugurated president or the elected president. Whoever the president of the United States is, needs to be stable and mentally capable. This report gives official status to a suspicion that many of us have already, got our heads wrapped around. So the 25th Amendment becomes legitimate, and those that would have a political hesitancy to pull the trigger on the 25th Amendment, I would say that they're wrong on both sides of the aisle. If some Republicans say, well, you don't want to get rid of Joe Biden through the 25th because, we're stuck with Vice President Harris, and Joe Biden is becoming what we would perceive to be an easy target for the election of President Trump, for a Republican to win the White House. I say that perspective is wrong. We need, regardless of politics, the president needs to be able to make critical decisions in a very short period of time. He can't be wandering around mentally. He has to be sharp. So when liberals say that we should not enact the 25th Amendment because they don't want to admit what they have just secretly known, to the world, which is that Joe Biden is not quite there mentally, I think that's wrong. So for the same reasons, you've got to have a president capable of making sharp decisions, and right now we don't have that. So all Americans should be concerned. And if one of the senior secretaries would pull the trigger on a 25th Amendment, like Garland, as much as I oppose Garland, and other senior secretaries like Mayorkas, if they would concur, then I would support that.
Congressman, it feels like the Senate and the House are on different pages. Perhaps not surprising when you have a Democrat-controlled Senate and a Republican majority just barely in the House. But on a critical issue like the border and securing the border, can we afford to wait until next year?
Legitimate question, but let me just remind your listeners, good sir, that the House took action 8 months ago when we passed the Secure the Border Act of 2023. We delivered that legislation, I believe, on May the 15th of last year. The total solution for the border, the H.R. 2, a bill that I worked very hard on for almost a year. We went through an 18-hour markup after many hearings and months of work, an 18-hour grueling markup in the Homeland Security Committee, my committee. And H.R. 2, the Secure the Border Act of 2023, is the total solution to our invasion at the southern border. The entire border crisis is addressed in that bill. And that bill has been gathering dust in the Senate now for 8 months. So it is intellectually unsound for anyone to say that Congress has not acted on this. It's the Senate, strictly the Senate, under the leadership of Chuck Schumer, as guided by our inaugurated President Biden and the factions that control him, they're the ones that have not acted. And I am not going to sit back and accept a diluted, weak, border sort of wired together bill written by liberal staffs in the Senate and approved by liberal staffs working for the White House. That is not the solution to the invasion at the southern border. H.R. 2 is the solution. H.R. 2 is the solution. H.R. 2 is the solution. That's my answer for border security.
House Republicans will have another impeachment vote for Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas set for Tuesday. Do you expect it'll pass?
I do. I mean, if the numbers hold, it was an even vote. We lost Gallagher, essentially on the 1 yard line there. Which those things happen, but Speaker Johnson managed it very gracefully, and I spoke to him immediately after the vote, and he was unshaken. He was quite strong. And by the way, Speaker Johnson is getting stronger. He faces withering attack from every faction. Last week was quite a precarious balance we knew going in. So losing the Gallagher vote was unfortunate, but we have Steve Scalise coming back into the halls of the People's House, and if the rest of our votes hold strong, then we should pass impeachment by one vote, and then we'll move on to the Senate, and we'll see what the Senate says. There's some danger to the Senate. We'll just dismiss it. They could do that. We'll see. But we're going to force them, as we used to say in the military, we're going to smoke them out. We're going to force these guys to show their hand to America. Do they stand for the security of our country? Will they use their congressional authority to actually perform to re-secure our border? And that where we have lost all of our sovereignty, and we've had 11 million now, 11 million illegal crossings. We've had 1 million this year. We are losing our country down there. So I believe we'll pass the impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas articles on the floor this week in the House, and we'll deliver it to the Senate in special ceremony. That's the way that works. And then we'll see what the Senate does. And they better take it up. They better take it up, or they're going to hear from America.
Congressman Clay Higgins of the great state of Louisiana, thank you so much for your time, sir. Have a great week and safe travels.
Thank you, sir. God bless.